Thank you for joining me on the Get What You Want podcast, where getting what you want isn't always what you think it is. My wish for you is that this show will create an awareness within yourself of what you really want and the possibility of getting it. Let's go create. My guest today is Genevieve Piturro. Genevieve was a successful television marketing executive in New York City for 20 years when a little girl's question changed the course of her life forever, and she jumped off the corporate ladder. She began delivering pajamas and books to children in shelters, and in 2001 founded Pajama Program, the nonprofit which has been recognized nationwide for both its success and for Genevieve's story. Genevieve also has a new book called Purpose, Passion, and Pajamas, How to Transform Your Life, Embrace the Human Connection, and Lead with Meaning. She's been featured on the Today Show, Good Morning America, Early Show CNN, Fox and Friends, O Magazine, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, many more, and she is one of the most rerun Oprah segments of all time. So I'm super excited, Genevieve, to have you as my guest today, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so I have to admit, I watched the Oprah segment this morning,
Okay.
a little while ago, and it was definitely a tearjerker. And so if I get emotional, that's why, because I kind of connected to you through that a little bit, and yeah, super special. So tell me wherever you want to start with your story, but I would love for you to just talk about how you started Pajamas, and then like the pajama party, and then also kind of what led you to writing the book and just all of these things that you are.
Sure. Well, I'll start at the beginning. I just always wanted to be an independent woman. The first of 4 kids, and my father came from Italy, and both he and my mom wanted to raise kids. And I know that secretly they wanted us to go to college, but they wanted us to have kids. And it just wasn't my path. My path was to climb the corporate ladder. And I watched Mary Tyler Moore, and I wish I had met the lady because she was my idol. That to me was success, an independent woman in a great city. For me, it was New York, and working in TV, great wardrobe, great best friend, great apartment. So I was modeling after her. And I really did enjoy my life, and I did a lot of the things that I always dreamed I'd want to do. And I was 38, I was single, and one afternoon, I was in my apartment by myself, and I heard a voice, and it didn't come from my head voice. Like we always have our heads, chattering.
Yeah.
And this came from somewhere else. It came from deep. It came from, I now call it my heart voice. We all have that heart voice that we don't listen to, and I didn't listen to. And it asked me a question that just floored me. It asked me, if this is the next 30 years of your life, is this enough?
Wow.
I know. And it was really spooky because I heard it loud and clear, and there was nobody in the room, and it really freaked me out. But what really shocked me was my answer came so quickly, and my answer was no. You missed something. You missed having children. And I didn't think 38 was going to, be a good time to have kids. I didn't, it was all so sudden, this whole revelation in minutes. And I really had to just take some time to think about what this all meant, because I had a career, and I was independent woman. And I realized that there could be a way to bring children into my life after work. So I called police and I said, where do you bring these children that we see on TV and that we read about that are harmed by people who are taking care of them? Can I go, spend time with them? They gave me some names. I called the shelters, and they were really welcoming. I just said, I'm a nice lady. Can I come and read to the kids at night? And they said, you sound like a nice lady. Okay.
Wow.
Pre 9/11 in New York, it was very different. So that was when it was. So I was excited, after work, I brought some children's books and I went to one of the shelters, and I was so unprepared for what I saw and more what I felt. I went in a corporate suit, and they showed me to this room that was pretty bare, and it had a couple of little chairs for kids. And I sat on the floor. I didn't know where to sit. And the kids started to come in, and I saw them, and one by one, those little faces were just melting me. And, like I say, I just was so ashamed that I had no clue. And we weren't rich. We were barely middle class. I mean, we didn't have a lot. My mom didn't work. She was a mom and a homemaker. My dad came from Italy, and we just had love and comfort and good food.
Yes.
But I learned so much when those little faces, came and plopped down next to me. They were so quiet and they were so afraid. And the staff couldn't tell me legally what had happened to any of them, but I only could imagine. And, found out later that a lot of that was what had happened. The worst things that you could imagine. So week after week, I would read these stories to these children who were very quiet. They were afraid. They didn't know what was going to happen to them, and I hate to say the word process, but they were being processed through the system. And it's just an ugly word for these beautiful little children. And one night I followed where the staff were taking them in one of the shelters to go to sleep. And I peered into that room, and it was also a bare room. It was crowded for the children to sleep in on small beds or cots, and they slept in their clothes. And as I was looking in, these memories of my bedtime, like I said, full of love, and my mom would, giggle with us and laugh and tickle us and, keep telling us no, and we insisted we needed more to drink, and read us stories and hugs and kisses. And I never realized, I'd never thought about it 38 years, what that meant. And I say that over 20 years, I learned it's not about the pajamas. It's about that bonding, that safety, that comfort, that compassion, that love, all those security, all those things rolled up into a bedtime. And these children didn't have it. And it was all wrong. So as I was going out that evening, I asked the staff, could I bring some pajamas next week? And she said, that would be great. And I did. And that's when I started handing them out to the children after I read the story. And they were always different children, so I didn't know who was there. I bought so many pajamas, it was unbelievable. And I pulled one out for each of the children, and one little girl wouldn't take them. She kept shaking her head. No, no, no. She was so afraid. And she wanted to watch me give them to the kids, but she did not want to take a pair. And I went over when she was the last one. And I knelt down and I tried again. And I took the sleeve, so soft, it was pink. And I tried to tell her how soft, and show her. I put the sleeve on her hand, and I said, it's pink. It matches the pink in your purple top, which was soiled. Her pigtails were lopsided. And I didn't know what to do. I kept the smile on my face, and I kept coaxing her. And finally she whispered, what are they? What are pajamas?
Oh my gosh.
And I had to explain to a little girl. And I don't know how I did it. Half of my brain was like confused and blowing up. And the other half was saying, don't make her feel uncomfortable. Don't stutter. Don't cry. Don't have a sad look on your face. Just explain in a gentle way. These are for her. And I did. I said, they're for you. They're brand new, and they'll fit you, and you'll be so comfy when you get into bed, and you'll have sweet dreams. And I just tried to make it as reassuring as I could. And then the staff put them on her, and she gave me a little smile, and I was obsessed from that moment on. Obsessed.
I can't even imagine. I think it's so crazy what we take for granted. Something as simple as bedtime. And I remember growing up, I was in a very poor home too, but one thing that we always had was cookies and milk before bed.
Yeah.
And then, we would have our hug, and they literally would tuck us in, like put the blankets underneath of us. And I actually didn't know what pajamas were either for a lot of years. And that was just like in a regular home, but I did change my clothes to go to bed. And so like when you say it's not about the pajamas, it's about something so much bigger. But that was such a place to start, right? Tell me, to this day, so I know like on your Oprah segment, there were, I don't know, I think you had given out 85,000 pairs of pajamas, and then she brought, well, I think everyone needs to watch that segment anyway.
Yeah.
So.
Can you see if I raise this?
Oh, yes. Yeah. 32,046. Yes. That's so crazy. Anyway, that was emotional. To watch.
Yeah.
And so like to today, do you have a number of how many pairs of pajamas have gone out?
Oh yeah, 7 million, over 7 million
Oh
pajamas
my gosh.
and books across the U.S. and Puerto Rico. Yes, 63 chapters around the U.S. So
Wow.
working hard.
7
That's
million
a game
pairs of
changer.
pajamas. That is
Yes.
a game changer for sure.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel so honored to even just be sitting here with you. That is just so, I don't know. It just gives hope and inspiration to people. So you literally have like 7 million children now. You went from
Well,
having none to
I,
so many.
I wish my husband. I got married. You know, the universe helps you, and I met a wonderful man, and
Yeah.
that's a funny story because I was afraid to tell him I was thinking about jumping off the corporate ladder because he thought, I was getting involved with somebody who was going to bring in, half the bacon. And
Yes.
I and I said, I'm thinking about jumping off the corporate ladder and giving pajamas to kids, and he said, go for it. He got it.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you married
So,
him for
so
sure.
married him. Yeah. So he had said for many, many years, I'm just afraid every time I open the door and come home that I'm going to see these little faces sitting on my sofa. And you're going to tell me, honey, I brought some home.
Yes, I have done that. I have had a couple foster kids,
That's
and
great.
it's a lot. It's a lot, and the system is crazy, and what they go through in that system is just,
Yeah.
yeah, it's unimaginable. And I've
Yeah.
been close to it, not in it, but definitely have had that experience of having them in my home. So I
Yeah,
know
that's
what a
great.
difference it makes to have
Yeah.
even just a pair of pajamas.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're going to go bigger now, right? This was your purpose. This was your calling. And it was like your heart voice, you say. I fully believe in this. And I'm a little, I don't know, maybe some people would call me crazy because I always am just, I just want to help everyone in the entire world, and I have a great husband who's super supportive too, who's always like, babe, you
Oh,
can do
good.
this, go for it, whatever your next step is. And that, this step of creating a podcast, Get What You Want, was really intended to kind of just reach a bigger presence and a bigger, to help people realize that what they think they want isn't always what they really want. And
Yeah.
so I want you to expand on that a little bit. Talk about your book, talk about, having the purpose and the passion of really stepping outside of our limits and boundaries and all the things that the world has kind of created for us to make us think that we have to be, in a certain place. Because it sounds like your calling at the beginning was to be in corporate. Like whatever it was that you got there is what got you here. And so maybe you could expand on that a little. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on exploring our passions and going for it like that.
Right. Right. Well, I would always think I would watch Oprah like we all did, and I would read the great stories of um, Gandhi, and I did a big paper on Leonardo da Vinci when I was in school, and Einstein, and all those people, and I would think, wow, those people find their purpose. They're changing the world. They're doing um, great things, and somehow they were given this purpose and all of this. And I really thought, regular people like me weren't destined for anything but, working in a career, and of course loving family and friends, and having that. But every single person has a purpose, and I'm always so jealous when I meet young people, because more and more young people are looking for it at the start. And I do master classes and things, and I always say start at the beginning, especially if you aren't 20 something, because there were reasons why we took the roads we took, whether it was family, tradition, what was expected. But it never occurred to me, and no one ever said to me, well, what do you want to do? What's your passion? What do you feel your calling is? Those weren't phrases, that I heard, that were I considered. So I followed what I thought I wanted to do by, I watched Mary Tyler Moore. I had
Mhm.
those kinds of role models on TV, and in my life that were hardworking people that
Yeah, it's
had
like it's like the world kind of tells us for a while, right? What we want
yeah,
to do.
yeah. If you're unlucky enough like me to not even know I had a heart voice, most of us think about it for relationships, falling in love and things like that. But your heart voice is talking to you all the time. You just have to ask it to speak up. And you have to listen. But it guides us through every walk of our life.
Mm,
Work. We should have meaning at work. There's no reason why we should just
for
exclude
sure.
feeling, that our work has meaning to the greater good. It does. And I think we're all learning now in these last few months. that we need meaning in our life, and it's not okay to just have a job anymore. Things have changed. We've been
Yeah.
looking inward.
Yeah, I definitely think that our world is a lot more open to, entrepreneurs and exploring some passions and that type of thing. I know when I started this journey, like I was born into this journey. So,
Mhm.
I think sometimes I refer to like people that are awake or people that are asleep, or, and our world is kind of made up of all this, just, our stories, and we hear and we have all this input all the time. And it's really hard to kind of separate that with what really aligns with us. But I do think that the world is, because of people like you, because of people like me, because of those people who took the kind of that step out of their box to realize some bigger purpose. I think our world is finally, able to listen and be like, oh, maybe there is something that I want, or something that I feel, or, but they don't know what to call it, or they don't know where it's coming from.
Right, right. Well, the calling it part was another heart voice. But, and that's a fun story. I'd like to tell you that. But to what you're saying before, I write about this in my book, and there were a lot of lessons over 20 years of Pajama Program so far. Next year we celebrate 20 years, and I've been doing it, a couple of years before, figuring out what this is.
Wow.
And it's, people would say along the way, and I've heard it even before I did anything with pajamas, the power of one. Oh my goodness, the power of one. See, one person can change the world. It's not the power of one, it's the power of one another.
Oh my
I
gosh.
tell people all the time, if you weren't helping me, Shirley, if you weren't spreading the news now that let's look at this together, let's figure it out together, I would be in the middle of New York City with a ho 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 Santa Claus bag of pajamas by myself, handing out as many as I could carry by myself. Could never have done anything. But because of that human connection, every time I told that story, I'd get the same reaction you had, and it was the same reaction I had. It's like I had that human connection with that little girl, and so did you. You had it with me, but it's almost like she told you the same story, that she was standing in front of you. And it's magical. And you have to believe, like I can tell you do, that there are reasons that things happen. There are connections that are invisible. There's power in the power of one another. And there's no way the power of one can do anything alone.
I love that you said that. I love that so much, because my whole thing is relationships, and we can't create something alone, and we can be the leader of what, we can be that power of one that starts it, like you
As an
did,
idea.
like you started it. Yeah. But even watching Oprah and seeing, in
Right.
1 week, she was able to reach out to these audience members, and they were able to reach out and in 1 week come up with 32,000,
Right.
almost 33,000 pairs of pajamas. That's
Right.
so crazy to me.
And I had nothing to do with that. She did
Exactly.
it,
You
and
didn't even
those
know.
people, right.
Yeah.
And each of those people didn't know what the others were doing, because it was a secret. Even she, if you watch, she's shocked. They wouldn't even tell her the total until she was on the air with me to give her that envelope to open. So it's so powerful, the power of one another. We don't use it enough. We just don't know how important and how precious it is.
Well, and I think that there's fear whenever we're stepping out of our comfort zone. I think there's so much fear that comes with that as like humans, is someone going to accept this? Is someone going to, when I wrote my book, I was petrified. Like that name had to be the name of the book. And it was just horrible for so long. And I've had so many women say, oh my gosh, I read your book on a plane, but I hid the title from everyone else because I didn't want them to think, because it's Get What You Want From Your Man, right? And it sounds so horrible, but that was the name that needed to be there for specific women to want to pick it up.
Yeah.
And for me to be able to take them on that journey, right? And so
right.
there is a power in one person connecting with one another, like with other people. And I think that's just so beautiful. And especially in this world of women, like you're a pioneer in that. And, years ago, we were not supposed to be in the corporate world. We were not supposed to be strong and powerful. We were not supposed to be doing these things on our own. And I think it's just so great that we don't minimize the power of one, but that we especially don't minimize the power of one another.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of ones out there that have a lot to share, but they'll never achieve what they want to achieve without the help and support of others.
Right. And the word you're using is key, share. Because if I didn't share my story, if you didn't share what you wrote, then it wouldn't go any farther than, in your heart and your mind. And then it stays in one, and there's no power in that.
Yeah. And if I wouldn't have interviewed someone who interviewed, like I think about how I got you on this show, and it was just some word of mouth. Someone somewhere felt that this was a good place for you to be and reached out to me. And so I love that guest after guest after guest keeps being brought to me just because I made this crazy quick decision to start a podcast. And I had committed to a year, and I'm on, I don't know, I'm like 10 months into it or something. And I haven't missed an episode. And
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking like, I'm going to be done with this. I'm going to be done with this. But then someone else reaches out to me. And so it's so crazy how I think like once we put it out into the universe, or whatever you want to say, like how it just kind of takes care of itself. Like I am constantly getting guests fed to me without me asking any person, not even one single person. Yeah. So it's a beautiful journey to see how we really do all connect and help each other. And,
right.
And I felt so connected to you even before I brought you on today. When I watched that segment, and I was just like, oh my gosh, how did someone know that this was the person that I needed to interview and that my people need her?
Are you feeling stuck in your relationship? Do you feel you need more? Whether it be more time, attention, security, gifts, intimacy, or companionship, your partner is likely experiencing something similar. Yet both of you are not sure how to fix it. In Shirley Baldwin's best-selling book, Get What You Want From Your Man, she will show you how to get all of this and more. Get What You Want From Your Man is available nationwide through all major bookstores, Amazon.com, and through her website, www.getwhatyouwantguru.com.
Well, it's the universe, and I talk about that in my book, because sometimes, more and more people are understanding the universe as our partner.
Yeah.
But when you do make a decision like you did so quick, there's something right about it when you make that decision quickly, and you just trust so much in whatever power that is that you made that decision. That commitment is incredible, and you trust the universe to be your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And you allow that, you invite it in. And I think people are afraid, and they think that they have to push that rock uphill.
Yes.
Or they're not doing the work.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think like the universe always has your back too. And yeah. I think, that people don't realize, or they think that it's like woo woo, and it's becoming less woo woo. Yes. I've always believed in magic and, putting it out there and getting it back. And there's just been way, way, way too many things that could be called coincidence in my life that for sure are not, like, were for sure divinely sent to me. So, and you're one of them, of course, but I want to know, like, so from you to our listeners, is there one thing that you could share that would help anybody, no matter what stage they're in of life, to just kind of move forward, knowing what their purpose and passion is, or finding it, or listening to it, or like, what is your advice to our listeners to move towards getting what they want with passion and purpose?
Well, a couple things. First is listen to your heart voice, but you have to ask for it to speak up. If you don't know, if you've never heard it, or you can't identify it readily, if you sit quietly and you ask. My husband teaches meditation, so he was also divinely brought to me because I did not know how to meditate. I was, a personality, just do. But if you talk to it, he would say to me, ask that voice to speak to you. And if you do it enough times, it will, and you'll recognize it, and you'll hear it. And the more you do and you accept it, you're not, closed off to it, it will give you signals, and it sometimes will just scream it at you. So that's really good. The second thing is more practical, which I wish I had done. And I think I would say, if you're changing your life or you're trying something new, and it's scary. I mean, it's not
Oh, for sure.
exhilarating, but it's scary. And I've had lots of sleepless nights, and now I all over again putting a book out. My book is 1 week old. You want everyone to like your baby, and it's all over again. I thought those sleepless nights had ended, but
They never stop.
they never stop, right? Especially if you keep taking on new projects.
Mm-hmm.
And it's scary. And there are things that you have to pay attention to, and you have to do. But one of the things that would have helped me, and I would always say, put your cheerleading squad together, because those naysayers, those people who are going to have something to say, who are close to you because they think they're helping you, and some aren't doing it because they're helping you, but those naysayers can really knock you down. Because I got punched in the gut, and I wasn't prepared, because I was afraid, and I was contemplating a major move, and I didn't even know what it was that I was really going to do, how I could do it. And so because I didn't tell anyone, I fell easily when someone questioned me, or worse, or said I was crazy, and it was somebody close to me. So if I had those cheerleaders, which I got after first, I wouldn't have fallen so hard. And then my mom's my North Star. My husband is a cheerleader. And I started to tell some people that I hoped would be, supportive and on my side, even if they were questioning, how are you going to support yourself? You're not a saver, you're a spender. I'll buy shoes before I'll put money in the bank.
Yeah.
I know that about myself, and so do the people close to me. But I would have done it the other way. I would have rallied some cheerleaders and let them in on my secret, so that when somebody challenged what I was doing and made me really uncomfortable, because I was already uncomfortable, I could have saved myself a great deal of pain, and and going backwards instead of just one step in front of the other. So it took me.
That makes a lot of sense, because I know same thing in my life. And it's not like we just need them for one day. Like, we need them all the time. Like, I wake up some days and I think, what am I doing? Because I'm creating an online course right now, and it's a huge endeavor. And I'm just like, why was I just not happy with my book and podcast? Like, why do I have to keep going? And that's when I call certain people in my life, or talk to my husband, or, listen to those people who are just, you've got this. Like, this is your calling. You were made for this. You were born to do this, and sometimes you need to hear that on a daily basis. And sometimes hourly, depending on the day for me, and it's just so important to have that. Like, I love that. And I think one of the harder things kind of that you mentioned is like kind of letting go of those people who are the naysayers. Some of them we can't let go of, right? Some of them are friends and family that are close, but to be able to put up your protection when they, your wall of protection, when they start throwing that at you, and it can still get you down, but then I'll like turn around and be like, I got to call so-and-so, my friend, because I know she always can talk me back into doing this, And so I think that, one, being powerful in ourselves is amazing, and we all need that for sure. But yeah, to have that cheerleading squad that's always like, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it, when you feel that you can't, because there are those days. 100% of people have those days. And I think that is so good advice. It's just so good.
I hope so. I wish somebody had told me that. Maybe they did and I wasn't listening.
Yeah, it took me a lot of people telling me that, I think, and a lot of trial and error, and just like, why do I feel so crappy today? Oh yeah, because I spent time with that person who makes me feel like I can't do anything, Yeah. And so, yeah, I think that that's just such good advice. Tell me a little bit about your book.
Well, it's 20 years of lessons that I wanted to share with people about things that we were just talking about. The universe is there, and listening to your heart voice, and the power of one another, and the human connection, and getting that cheerleader squad. So it's a mix of those universal life lessons and practical things that I did, that I did wrong, or the long way. And ask questions. You know, I was embarrassed. I knew nothing about starting a nonprofit. I didn't even know that's what it would be. I just didn't know what to do with this thing until a little article this big, tiny, one paragraph basically in a national magazine came out because a woman called a reporter and said, "Are you the lady handing out pajamas?" I said, "Yeah, I guess I am." And she said, "Can I write a little story, just a little one?" And I said, "Sure." And I wasn't prepared for the onslaught of packages and letters and dollar bills from people around the US. And I was married at the time, and my husband couldn't believe it. There were boxes being delivered to our apartment, and we were eating on them, and we couldn't even see past them because people felt the same thing, that connection to her. And one letter, I'll never forget, I opened it, and it was written, it was professional, and it said, "Please send us your 501c3 so we can set you up with a grant." And I looked at my husband with the paper. I said, "What is this, 501c3? And the C is in parentheses?" And of course I learned, and it was huge. And I said to him, "This is now a responsibility. This isn't just something that I can say, I don't know what it is, and do it," because people are trusting me. And I'm sitting here with their, you know, their trust, and it's a responsibility. So only then, you know, a year or two in, did I say, this has to be an entity that is recognized and trusted and respected and legal, you know, in every way. So I talk about being afraid to ask for help with it. And, you know, I mean, a lot of financial stuff, because I didn't make a budget. My budget, my 5-year plan was literally a piece of paper with lines, and I would make 5 columns, 5-year, year 1, year 2, I did that. And you know, it's scary, but it came true. I would literally write how many chapters I want in year 2, and how many pajamas I want to give out in year 2, and then to the year 3, and it come true. But it was so, not even simple, not even the word, amateur is not even a word. And I didn't do that until I had to just play catch up.
Yeah.
You know, so that's more advice, practical advice. And, you know, I spent so much money. I got into debt, and it's just because I was obsessed. And I don't know that can change. I think when you are doing what you want to do, and you are, you know, that kind of a personality, you get obsessed. I don't know how
for
that, right?
sure.
You know?
I don't know that, and I don't know that it should be changed, because the obsession keeps you through the bad times, right? And the hard times, and the craziness.
Yes.
And I do believe in massive imperfect action. Like, you know what? It's not going to be perfect the first time.
Right.
This is something I've really had to learn, because it took, you know, 20 years of thinking about writing a book, and then 4 months of actually writing it to publishing it, because I finally just took massive imperfect action. And I can't even read it sometimes, because I think, how is it touching all these people's lives? It's so simple. It's so not I have so much more, right?
Yes, I get it.
You're just like, oh my gosh, like, how is that? But it does. And the entire fact that we wrote these books, people need to hear it. And it's crazy how you say one question that a little girl asked you, right, changed the course of your life. Imagine what your whole book could do for somebody, or for how many people. So what a blessing that you just keep following that heart voice that you have. Is there anything, looking back, I always ask my guests this, that you regret or would do differently?
Those I don't know that I could have, because, you know, what they say is true. If I hadn't done it that way, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you, right? But sure, some of the things I mentioned, probably getting some professional advice sooner. I am so jealous of the people who do start something when they're 22 years old.
Oh my gosh.
I just am so jealous, you know, where was I? But I think of all the things, all the other kids I could have helped, just starting it at 38 was so late to me, but I can't get caught up in that, right? So, yeah. Just the things that I mentioned, the practical things of getting it done. I could have done it smoother and smarter, and mostly because I was afraid to ask questions. And then I started asking, and I didn't stop.
And I think that, you know, if someone was to read your book, it gives same with mine in a completely different way, part of life, but it's going to give them your mistakes, right? The things you went through and your successes, and how to jump over the mistakes to get to the successes quicker. And I think that's why, that's like a purpose, right? Is to help other people be able to explore their passions and get to the goal line quicker. And without so much heartache, heartbreak, all the things that we go through to get there. So drama.
Think,
drama.
Drama. And I think it's important to tell people, yes, I came through some of the fires, and I'm here, and we've done a good job, but it's not easy.
No.
Having your dream, sounds wonderful. I know some young girls who want to be singers, and and it's a beautiful concept, and Pajama Program is a beautiful concept, but it's hard some days. You are taking on this lofty dream, and you're giving it your all, and it's your heart and soul, and if somebody doesn't love it, you feel the pain as if it was your child. And there's so much emotion. It's not a job. It's part of you.
It really is. And to separate that, right? To separate what other people are feeling with what to be true. And I think about this a lot because my husband is a doctor, and his path was just already there, right? And he just walked down the path, and it was hard. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. It was like, I listened to how many 14 years of schooling that he went to, and you think about, like, it's just so much work, but the work is just put in front of you, right? When you're an entrepreneur and you're like doing something new and crazy, what I picture is like, I'm chopping down, trees and bushes and carving my own path and running into stumps and running into like having to start all over again and back up and go a different way and back up and go a different way. And I think that people don't realize, and because I didn't realize, and I'm a lot older than 20 for sure. And so I didn't realize that it's so much involved, all the little teeny tiny things, the paperwork, the learning curves of like everything. I'm constantly having to learn some new program or some new software, and then also when you're us, it's so hard to delegate because it's your passion, your purpose, your dream, right? And to be able to like, okay, I've got to let someone else run my website now. I've got to let someone else do my editing. I've got to let someone else, do all these different things. And I think that there's just so much involved in it that people don't know. And not to scare them away from it, but it is a lot of hard work. It's definitely easier to walk down a path that someone else already carved. And in a sense, we're doing that for others, right? To, your book is at least giving like an idea of what they need to do to walk down it so that they're not just blindly doing it. So I think it's awesome. I'm so grateful that you're here, and I know that this is going to touch a bunch of lives. And tell me how do we get in touch with you? I know you said you have mastermind classes and all kinds of stuff. So do you have a website? Just give me all the info that you want to throw out there.
It's easy. It's GenevievePiturro.com. And I'm always available to contact Gen at GenevievePiturro.com to brainstorm. We have to pay it forward, and people mentored me. And, I love to listen to, sometimes people just need an ear. A lot of people are now rethinking their path, and now peace is the number one priority for every person who has a job that's thankful, who doesn't have a job for whatever reason, things have changed, needs to put food on the table. And that's a priority. So some people can't jump, and maybe they hope to. But I also say you can slide something in. It'll also make you happy. Spend an hour a week doing that. Don't just push it further back on a burner that's further away, because that will just make you sad. And we need to be uplifted. We need to see hope and feel it. So if you slide something in, that does change your attitude about everything. So sometimes people just need to listen, and they don't need a whole master class. But I do have 10. I started doing them virtually because I couldn't speak in front of people. And it's all about the topics in the book: listening. How do you listen to your heart voice? How do you empower your team? How do you bring meaning into your work? All those types of topics that are that are touching people today because of what we're going through together.
I love that. And so if you're out there listening and you're confused and you know there's something there, but you don't know how to start, please contact Genevieve. I think this is such a great thing. I am a huge believer in mentors and coaches, and let's just all help one another and have that power. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me, and your enthusiasm is contagious. I love it. I feel like you're my sister in this.
I love it.
We're on parallel paths, we believe,
Yeah.
and we're just giving it everything we can.
Yeah, and helping one another, and I love it.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks so much for listening to the Get What You Want podcast. If you loved it, please subscribe, share it with others, and leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. You can also visit me on my website at www.getwhatyouwantguru.com. Would love to hear from you. Now go create.